just put yourself first, because if you're not good, then you can't make art.
Hello, art friends, and welcome back to the Art Journey Podcast, the podcast where we explore artists' journeys in their careers as well as popular art topics to help you on your own art journey. I'm your host, Alex Agosto, and welcome. I feel like I need to come up with a new intro-y salutation greeting? I don't know. Anyways, how are you guys doing? It's been a while since the last episode. I had to unexpectedly take last week off because I was sick. Talk about a way to start the new year, huh? So, come on, guys. What have you guys been up to? Are you guys working on your New Year's resolutions? I've been seeing a lot on Instagram that artists are posting their art resolutions, which I think is pretty cool. But I do have something to say about that. If you're one of those people who has a list of resolutions for your art, I have some advice from past years of experience that I've had. Try to keep your list short and obtainable. Like, don't make this giant list of a million things that you want to accomplish in the new year with your art, and also these seemingly like the Goliath-sized goals, because at the end of the day, you should be setting more like goals that can be reached within the year. Because what's going to happen if you have this giant list of things you want to accomplish is, like, there's nothing wrong with being ambitious, but the problem with being overly ambitious is, as the year goes on and you realize that you're not ticking as many of the boxes as you'd like, it might start discouraging you, and you might feel like you're not getting as ahead as you'd like, or as ahead as other people seem to be getting, when it really is just that you signed yourself up for too many goals for the year. So yeah, my little bit of advice is sit back and really focus on your biggest priorities for your art this year, and make just a handful, maybe like 3 goals for your art this year that, if you really work at it, they're things that are obtainable in that time frame. And I think those will serve you the best, because instead of half-heartedly working on 20 goals, you can put your full effort and focus into 3 good goals. So those are my 2 cents. You do whatever you want and do whatever works for you. But these are things I've learned after so many New Years of making these tall order resolutions that I knew were not going to get accomplished in 365 days. Sounds like a lot. It's not, guys. But anyways, let's get on with the show. Today, I have a really cool guest. She does this amazing pop art. I'd call it pop art. It's really, really colorful. It's really bold, and it features a nice lineup of unique girly characters done in neon colors, and it's really hard to describe in a podcast, which is the curse of having a podcast about a visual topic, but I digress. Her name is Ella Moss, or you might know her on Instagram as Bubblegumgrrrl. Guys, if you haven't seen her work, please check it out. I'll have the links down below. But, I'm not even going to babble anymore. Let's just give her a nice warm welcome and say hello to Ella Moss, aka Bubblegumgrrrl, on the show today. How are you doing today, Ella?
I'm doing so good, thank you, Alex.
I'm so excited to have you on the show. You're one of those people that I discovered semi recently on Instagram
Yay.
because your art is very, I feel like, very unique and distinctive.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, like it's very poppy and eye-catching, and you have like a strength for making art that even in the smallest thumbnail, like on the explore page, it catches your eye and you just want to click it.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I try, so.
No, totally. I love your work. But as with every artist, we all have our humble beginnings as
Of
kids. Would
course.
you say that as a kid you loved art?
Oh yeah, like since day one, I absolutely loved art. Like my entire family is artistic in some form or another. Like my mom is an artist and a photographer, and my dad is a musician, and pretty much everybody on my dad's side is a musician. So I think it was just kind of in my genes to kind of, stray towards the art side of my brain.
Yeah, that's really cool. We've had a few people on this show who said that their parents led creative lives, and I always think that's so cool because that's so not the case in my family.
Right. Yeah, it happens, but
Yeah. Would you say that with your parents being creative and kind of having that sort of atmosphere in your home, that it kind of encouraged you to, pursue your art?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like I was always encouraged to just always be myself no matter like how weird it is and like how out there it is. Like my mom always encouraged me, in all aspects of life. Like she let me dress like a freak to school with mismatching clothes because she like wanted to support my creative expression. And she was always like that with my art as well and really just encouraged me in those different ways, as did my dad too. So I just had a very like open-minded family growing up.
That's really cool. I'm very lucky. And so when would you say would be have been the time that you kind of sat down and thought to yourself, okay, I got to start getting serious about my art. I really want to do this for a living.
I would say it was about 2 years ago. I've always kind of dabbled, like, on and off in art in my life. But, I was always into like conventions and stuff. I'm a total like weeb. And I would always see like the amazing artist alleys when I'd go to the vendor room and I'd be like, wow, I really want to do that. Like, I want that to be me one day. And I want to be like this cool artist, that everybody likes. And, I have like very cute things. And I don't know. So I just, like, one day I was like, it's not going to happen until I start now. And like, the improvement I think just really came when I got serious and just started drawing like every day, and it was
Mhm.
it was messy at first, but I mean it is true that like practice makes perfect because I saw like myself rapidly improve and like just a lot of experimentation over the past 2 years that have kind of like led me, like I don't think my journey is done by any means,
Yeah,
where I
never
am
done.
now, but I definitely feel like I've come a long way even though it was only 2 years ago.
Yeah, no, you'd be surprised. I've had a couple of guests that have come onto the show and said that they only just started taking it seriously
Yeah,
recently. And like you said, once I feel like once you have that mindset shift where you want to take it seriously and you actually do your practicing more and more, it's a cliche for a reason because it's true.
right, right. It was kind of like an epiphany in a way.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people say that. I mean, and it's funny, right? Because people tell you all the time, practice makes perfect, and you kind of roll your eyes because it's like, oh, never heard that
Yeah,
before. But
exactly.
it's different when you're actually doing it and you kind of have, like you said, that epiphany of, oh, wait a minute, that's why they say it, because it's
Exactly.
true.
It's tried and true. Like it kind of stinks because it means like, well, I do have to put the blood, sweat, and tears into it, but it's so rewarding. Like once you do, like even though like I worked so hard like over the past 2 years and whatever and stressed myself out, I feel like really thankful to be like where I am now as an artist. For a lot of reasons, but one of the biggest is now like I can draw fan art of the things that I've fangirled over for years and
Hmm.
fulfill
Yeah.
my childhood like dreams.
Yeah. Totally, I can totally relate to that, when you're not quite there with your skills and you want to do the fan art, but you have to, like, do the practice first, and it's always so
Exactly.
rewarding when you can finally do the things you wanted.
Right, and it's like there's no, like, one moment where it really clicks, like, that you can do that, but I just started thinking about it recently where it's like, "Wow, I'm actually really liking, like, how I'm drawing these characters now," and it's really nice when, like, the vision in your head that you want your art to look like actually, like, your hand can, like, match that, because I feel like a lot of people get discouraged because there is, like, a disconnect, like, between like what you see in your brain and what you want to create, and then like your hand is like behind, so it's like
Mhm.
doing that grueling work of like just drawing over and over and over again and experimenting and practicing and messing up and trying again. It can get really really discouraging, and I've had like a lot of art blocks and whatever on the way, but it's like if you just keep pushing through, you just got to get through like that one little like burst or whatever.
Definitely. And what you were talking about, like your hand not being able to like catch up what your mind is seeing.
Yeah,
I feel like those are always stages we go through. So,
right.
like, sometimes the better you get at observation, and
Yeah,
it's sometimes good when you draw something and you feel like your hand can't catch up, because at the very least, that means that your mind is already trained to find the mistakes you're,
exactly. Like
making.
you have the taste, like you have the taste and you can see like the concepts and like the color theory and whatever in your brain. It takes so much experimentation until you can figure out like the best way to do it like for you, you know.
Totally. I feel like a lot of times, while obviously the physical skill of drawing is very important to develop, I think it's equally important to be able to develop that eye and that taste
I
so
completely
that
agree.
when you actually do have the ability to translate it onto paper, you're doing something of quality.
Exactly. Yeah, like yeah, in that sense, I find it really important. Like, I'm always trying to go to art museums in my area because even if it's not art, like I'm not seeing art like mine in museums, but it's still like I'll see like, oh, I really love how they use like the yellows and the pinks in this picture, and I feel really inspired. I want to try something like that, or just seeing like all these different kinds of works, even if it's not like your work. I think that's really important for artists. I feel like that's almost like brain practice in a way. Like if somebody's really good at math and they like practice doing math problems or whatever to like, become more fluent in those formulas, I feel like that's kind of how it is with artists. Like you need to be like constantly like consuming art and like finding things that inspire you and just kind of doing things that kind of help your inspiration in a way.
I completely agree. That's very important. And not just consuming the kind of art you like, but also trying to consume new things to kind of
Exactly.
challenge your perspective.
Yeah, because I've seen tons of stuff where, ordinarily it wouldn't be my style or maybe something I'm not into or doesn't really catch my eye, but there'd be like one piece by like, in that artist's collection that I'm like, wow, like something in there, like just really like this has nothing to do with anything that I would ever create, but it just makes something like click in your brain in a way and you kind of like understand it. It's like a really weird sensation.
Yes, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. And so, going back, I always ask this question because I know that it's a question that a lot of listeners are always wondering
Mhm.
about the artists they look up to. But did you go to art school?
No, I didn't actually. And the funny thing is I really didn't even take that many art classes in high school either or middle
Really?
school. Yeah, it's funny. Like I think I took art like for half a semester in middle school, and then in my last senior year, I took like pottery and like a regular art class. And I did not like I was in my rebel phase. I didn't care about anything. Like I did not put any effort into those classes at all. So yeah, like when people ask me things like that, I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm pretty self-taught because when I had the opportunity, I didn't care about it. So
Yeah, no, that's I've hear a lot of stories like that where, take So I don't know if you've heard of Catnip illustrations.
I haven't.
Oh, so she was on the show recently. She was actually telling me that even her, she did go to art school, but at the time, she went to art school at a time in her life where she didn't really appreciate it,
Right.
so she didn't get as much out of it as she could have.
Yeah,
I feel like
exactly.
it's a similar situation. At the time, you probably just didn't like put as much heft into the idea of art school, so you didn't go, and then probably now looking back, you would have enjoyed it.
Right. And I feel like I was inclined to go to art school, but I also had this weird like self struggle. Like I mentioned earlier, it was really on and off for me because I kept feeling like, well, why am I pursuing art? Like it's gotten a lot better in the last few years, but the general attitude about pursuing an art career, like throughout my life, has been like pretty negative. And like, just in
Interesting.
society in general, like my family, of course, like would have supported anything I did, but I don't know, it just always seemed like oh, you're not going to make any money, like there's no, like you're not going to have a career like that's, stable and whatever. So I just felt like, oh, like I need to find something where I can support myself, and so I kept pushing it to the back of my mind and like trying to like consider other things.
Mhm.
And while I am like, I did actually get a degree in elementary education and I am a teacher now.
Yeah.
It is something I really enjoy, but my heart always goes back to art. So it's like, even if it's not like the most financially stable thing or whatever, it is what makes me the happiest.
No, I completely understand. I had a very similar situation happen in my life. I did go to art school. I actually went to school for jewelry design in New
Oh
York City.
wow.
But I kind of, well, I don't think jewelry design was quite the right fit for me,
Mhm.
but B, I let the fear of like, I'm never gonna make enough money, and this is
Right.
not gonna go well for me. I let that consume
Exactly.
me, and I ended up getting a degree in business, and that's what I've been working in ever
Right.
since.
Right.
But
And
it's the same as you. I feel like art is what would make me the happiest.
yeah, and I feel like it's still totally valid because I know like so many artists who do have like other careers and stuff, because it is hard out there, like even popular artists still have to have like side gigs and everything because it can be like a scene that can fluctuate a lot. And
Mhm.
so that's why it's like, don't I would tell people like not to feel bad about it, because like there's a lot about people that you don't know about, like behind the scenes in their life. Like nobody's posting about like the 9 to 5 job they have to go to and they're like this cool popular artist or whatever, but I feel
Yeah,
like it's more
exactly.
common than we think. And yeah, and I just like, whenever I talk to like young people now who want to be artists, I would just say like, really experiment and really figure out like, if this is something you really want to do, because if it is, like completely go for it, like no questions asked. But it is like, like any other career, it takes a lot of work. So it's not something that, like, while I love art, it's not always like fun and happy games, and or not happy games, but like it's not always like,
Yeah.
frivolous and fun to just like draw or whatever. Like there's so much like, business stuff and like researching cons and events to sell your stuff at and manufacturers, and like so much like comes with it that can be really frustrating and discouraging. So I think if people like at least just experiment with it, like don't be afraid to go after art, but it can be like a little difficult in some aspects.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think it's incredibly important to share stories like yours of artists who do have that 9 to 5, because it
Right.
is incredibly more common than you think. Like you said, guys, you got to remember that people on social media, every single person you know, whether you know them in real life or not, they're
Yeah,
all trying to put the best facet of their lives forward.
exactly. Yeah.
And it's only half, if that, it's like half the story. You know,
Exactly.
and there's no shame, like you said, Ella, in having that day job to support you, regardless of whether you always have a day job or it's something to kind of keep your bearings while you're, getting your art going.
Exactly. Yeah, because it's like there are so many costs and fees and like event things, like so many things you have to like invest in and pay for and all that. Like if you're trying to be like an artist who sells at like conventions and stuff, or just one that has an online shop in general, there's a lot of money that, it takes a lot. So it's like I feel really like happy for the people who like their families, like they still live with their family and their family really supports them, because like that's actually, I don't want to say lucky because I don't want to like, phrase it in that way, but I feel glad for
Mhm.
them because it is really hard for artists who maybe like have to live on their own or whatever to kind of front those costs like a lot of the time, like cuz conventions can cost anywhere from, $200 to $500 or in the thousands if you're buying vendor tables and like all the
Wow.
equipment and like, investment in like merchandise and whatever. So it's like it's tough.
Definitely. It's funny because I feel like the stereotype out in the world is that being an artist is just happy and easy breezy life.
Yeah.
And it can't be farther from the truth. A lot of times I find that the people I know who pursue art for a living are the hardest working people that I know.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like not even to, I don't want to put myself up on this like, oh, I work so hard. I mean, I do, but like even like the other people I see around me at events, like I see them like, we put the hours in at like conventions, even behind the scenes, and like I know a lot of my art friends, like it's a hard life out there sometimes and it can get really exhausting, but in the end there's a lot of reasons that make it worth it, obviously. So, everything has its pros and cons.
Definitely. And I guess since we're on this topic, how do you kind of strike that balance between your day job and then your life as an artist?
Hmm.
Like, how do you make the time for it? Because I'm sure that's something a lot of people are curious to know how other people do it.
Um, right now I'm actually not doing it very well, I have to say. Because well, this past semester I've just graduated college this semester, and
Oh, congratulations.
thank you. And I was actually in like a student teaching position, which basically was like being a real teacher. I just wasn't getting paid. So
Yeah.
so I did have like that same like 50 hours a week schedule, and you know, it really was very, very stressful and exhausting at times.
Mhm.
I think that it was just really important for me to remember that it's okay to take breaks. Like social media makes you feel like you have to churn out like what am I trying to say? Turn out like new content.
Content.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like every day. And the algorithms work against you if you don't really, which can be another frustrating thing. But it's like, I just have to think, my fans and, the people who love my work, like they're always going to be here. Like they're not leaving if I take, a few extra days to like, put out a new piece or whatever. And it's like if my mental health and my physical health aren't there, like I'm not going to be able to put out good work anyways. So I used to
Totally.
really put the pressure on myself to put out like at least 3 to 5 pieces a week, but I've taken it down to maybe like one or two, like maybe like once a week or every other week. And while it can be frustrating because like the engagement does go down in social media,
Mhm.
when I think about it, it's like when I go to like conventions and everything, it's still like I don't see a change in that. So it's like my work is still valid. I have to remind myself, even if I'm not, posting every single day, it's still like people still like it. It's still out there. Like I don't have to be like this work machine to, be an artist basically.
Mhm. No, and I feel like that's something in the age of social media that we all need to completely always be reminding ourselves. Our worth and our work's worth is not just the numbers that are on the screen.
Exactly.
Those numbers represent real people that, are cheering for you, and many times these are the same people that when you do disappear for a while, they ask where you are, not because
Exactly.
they are like, "Why haven't you posted?" It's because they're concerned about you as a person. I feel
Exactly.
like that's what you always have to be keeping in mind. just like you're a number on someone else's screen, remember that all those numbers are also people.
Right, exactly. And that's what, like, I have to think about it like that because I know that I follow a lot of artists who sometimes they'll only post like maybe once or twice a month, and that doesn't change like the way I feel about their work at all. Like I'm just excited to see, anything new that they put out, when
Yeah.
they're able to. So it's like just putting yourself first. Like, obviously you kind of have to find like your own balance and things you can do, things you have to do in your life, like, errands and chores and whatever, and make sure you have everything for your job done. Because, with teaching, my situation's kind of special. Like, with teaching, you have to take your work home with you a lot of the time. And
Yeah.
so I'm still trying to find that balance, but I feel like I've gotten better at it over the past few months. So it's really like a personal thing, but the most important thing to remember is just put yourself first because, if you're not good, then you can't make art. So
That's so true. That's completely true. And so I know that one of the things people love about your work, like I mentioned earlier, is you have a very unique style. I feel like if somebody printed off one of your works and put it in front of me with no watermark, no name attached to it, I'm pretty sure I could identify it as yours.
that makes me so happy.
And it's true though, like it's very unique and distinctive. And I feel like it's something that everybody is always running towards. They want to develop that style that's their own.
Yeah, it's
So how did you go about, I know that nobody ever really cognizantly developed their style, but
right.
I guess how did you kind of find what you liked, what didn't like, what didn't work, stuff like that?
It's like I actually struggled with my style for so long for a lot of different reasons. The
Mhm.
first reason was I would say like your medium of choice is really important because I think some people as artists, like while you can get better with practice, I think people will just gravitate like towards one type of medium because that's just, that's who they are as an artist, like a watercolor artist, traditional pencils, whatever. And I knew I was a digital artist, but just being a digital artist, I mean, that's not all there is to it because, there's so many different genres within digital. And
Yeah.
I skipped between programs. Like I did Paint Tool or whatever, the full name for it for
Mhm.
a long time, but I couldn't really, like figure out like what I wanted to do with it, like style wise. And then I always knew like I hated Photoshop because I hated the default brushes. And I was like, I want to make Photoshop work for me so badly because I know like there's so many artists that do use it. And I
Mhm.
thought like, ugh, like I'm never gonna get it, working for me. But then I found the Kyle T. Webster brushes, I think that's his name. And
Mhm.
I downloaded them thinking like, okay, like maybe these, custom brushes will help me out. And I went through a long experimental phase with like trying gouache brushes and watercolors, and I did like just so much experimentation is so important.
Yeah.
But then I finally found a brush that I really loved using, and I've actually used it ever since. Like it's my brush, and while I don't think people should just completely base their style on a brush, like obviously you have a style outside of like a brush, it can really affect like how you feel about your work in a way. Because I never really like clean lines. I like brushes that have like a tiny bit of like grain on the sides. It's like hard to describe, but I'm sure people know what I'm talking about if
Yes,
they look
I
at
do.
my art. So that was really important to me, and also I just took a lot of things like I just studied a lot of other artists' work and I would look like what specific things like do I love about their work? Like do I really love the way they draw like bodies, and or do I really like the way they draw eyes, or do I like the way they color, and or just like little things with shading, like just the smallest details. I would try to like pick out what I really liked, and then I would practice like using like that specific thing in my own work, and then I would, see if I liked it, and then I started kind of making it my own, like, kind of branching it out and changing it up so it was a
Mhm.
little more unique. And I kept doing that and doing that and doing that until, I've gone through like a million different techniques you can see like on my work on my page. And I'm getting a little more consistent now, but I think it's just really important to do that because I don't know if you've heard of the artist Yoshitani, but
Mm.
they posted this like thread on Twitter talking about like finding an art style, and they just said like draw what makes you happy and like make drawing fun, because if you pick this style that's like really laborious for you and like stresses you out a lot and is like really hard for you like to do, or to like it just takes you a long time or like stresses you out or whatever, like don't do it. Like draw in the way that just makes you happy. Like if it's simple and cartoony, or like if it's, you know, watercolors or like really thin lines or scratchy lines, whatever, like do like don't deny yourself in like what you like to draw, because that's so much of the process is like enjoying what you do. And there was a lot more to that thread along the same vein, but it kind of just clicked something in my head, because like I wanted to be like this super like detailed like kind of painterly artist, but I realized
Mhm.
that I just really like art that's like that, but that's not my style. And I think that people kind of have trouble like discerning between those things, because I did. So like just figuring out like what's the art you really like and admire in other people, and like what your actual style is, can be like two different things. So like
Yeah.
I never like I felt like, oh, like my art is like really cartoony, like people might not think it looks good, or it's just like silly and I want to do serious work and it's not going to come off like correctly. But like I just I like after that thread I just went with it, and like now that I've really like kind of developed, you know, kind of what I'm trying to go for, I found that now that I've made my style more distinct and more mine, I'm actually still able to do like serious things. Like I love cutesy things, but you know, I like, you know, darker like material. I like horror and I like, you know,
Yeah.
so I don't know, like that was so much rambling. I hope it made sense, but
No, yeah. Yes, it completely did make sense. Because it is true. I feel like the number one part of finding an art style is trying out different art styles because
exactly.
you don't know what your hand likes or does not like to do unless you try it. Because
Exactly.
I feel like a lot of people get discouraged when, like you said, they like an art style and then when they go to do it, it doesn't come out right.
Yes.
And it's just, we all have to remember, I said this on another episode, but all our hands are different and not
Exactly.
all our hands want to move and do the same things. So it could just
Exactly.
very well be that even if you're trying to perfectly imitate this one person's art style, it won't come out like that because their art style is like that because it came from their hands. So you need to find an art style that suits your hands.
Exactly. And like definitely like don't like stick yourself, like don't decide on a style like too early. Like that's what I like try to say to all like young budding artists is like please try everything before you decide on one thing, because it's like if you just and like that, because that's what I did to myself. Like I kept trying to do this one style like over and over and over again, and it just wasn't working, and I just felt like, oh my god, like I'm not going to improve as an artist, and like I just kept having like this, you know, really stressful, you know, thing. And I
Yeah.
just realized that like you have to like you're not going to know it right away. You have to like explore like all these different like ways of making art, and it feels really good when you like when you try a certain style and you're like, "Oh my god, like I love how like everything is coming out that I'm drawing." And I don't know, it feels almost like an epiphany, like when you can finally, you know, really start doing things that really make you feel more connected, like, okay, like this is my art, you know, like I feel like, you know, a connection to it now.
Yeah, I completely know what you're saying. That feeling of when your hands are finally kind of making something that is in tune with kind of what you visualized.
Exactly.
Because I've also had that, like, I'm still very much in the developmental stage of my art. I
Mhm.
like only recently, like in the past year, finally kind of came to terms with, okay, you know what? I'm ready to maybe start taking this seriously again. And I'm in that part where I'm trying to find an art style that like my hand can follow because it's funny, I keep fighting what my hands do.
Right,
So
right.
like I'll be like I hate this, this looks dumb, but you kind of have to learn to change your mindset to be like, you know what, I cannot keep fighting myself. I can't be mad at my art
No,
style
yeah,
because
exactly.
it's just a reflection of who I am. You know, the way you draw is completely an extension of who you are as a person, and you cannot be angry at it. You have to
Exactly.
just kind of find something that works with it so that you can develop something that you do like.
Yeah, you gotta let it flow. It's like this little like, fragile thing inside you, and like you can't control it. You just gotta like nurture it and like let it develop and like let it change and flourish and like just let it do its thing and support it, and then it, it'll come, it's like I don't know, like it I actually struggled with that for so much of my life, so I really relate to that, and it's just like I don't know, like the only thing I can say is like I know like people hate hearing that, but I'm like the thing that legit fixed that for me was just, consuming different kinds of art, experimenting and literally drawing like every day. Like those are my, like tips to success or whatever, you would call those
Yeah.
things. Like
Yeah, and it's a really good piece of advice that I feel like both young and old artists alike, I feel like they need to hear that because even those that are experienced, I feel like can forget that sometimes what what you like and what you do are not exactly 100% the same.
exactly. Yeah, cuz like while I do like art that is similar to mine, obviously because I've drawn a lot of inspiration from a lot of different artists, I also
Mhm.
love a lot of art that has, it's like nothing like my art at all and it still, inspires me and whatever. So it's like, and on like the flip side of that and on the balance, I just like to, also add that it's like it's you also can't like force yourself to like don't force yourself to like draw things that you don't really want to do because like I think a lot of people are afraid to just draw like what they like because they don't want to keep doing like the same things over and over again or
Mhm.
like or like the same fandom, but it's like when you're in those really stressful developmental experimentational whatever stages of your art style where you're like trying to find yourself, it's like everything is so crazy and constant and changing, like you need to keep like that one constant that keeps you comfortable with art, and it's like if all you want to draw is like Steven Universe, then do it, or like if all you want to draw is cats, then do it. It's
Mhm.
like draw that specific thing, but draw it like a million different ways, like that's what I like to say is, like obviously you want to branch out at some point and so you can get experienced in different, things like me, I need to practice way more in backgrounds because I never do them, but
Mhm.
but it's like for me, like I kept all I wanted to do was just like keep drawing like my key character who's like an alien cat,
Mhm.
and or like my OCs like Bubblegum Girl or my fashion girls or like just things like that where I felt like oh I should be drawing more fan art to get more likes and that's how I'm gonna get exposure, but it's like I don't even need to worry about that right now because it's gonna come, once you like develop yourself. It's like you gotta
Mhm.
worry about you and your development as an artist. It's like just keeping that balance between like being open, but also, don't strain yourself or stress yourself out just for the sake of like, like getting attention. And it's like I know like we all like want more likes and more follows, and more exposure and everything, but it's like don't even worry about that for now because it's art is like your own personal journey and like I promise it's gonna come like if you put that like work in and it's
Yeah, I completely get what you're saying, and like you were saying, it's not really worth putting yourself through the stress in creating art for the sake of the likes and the attention because it's popular. Because honestly, the way you're gonna garner a more loyal and honest following is by creating art that you like to do.
exactly, exactly.
don't want to do art for like frivolous reasons like likes, because that is going to wane very quickly, because you're going to get tired of just following trends, and you're also going to realize
Exactly.
that then you're not being consistent because you're just following whatever's trendy. And
Right.
that does have its place in the industry. There are people who are dedicated to doing just that, and more
I
power
applaud
to them
them.
if that's what
Yeah.
they agree. If that's what they like, that's fine. But if you're not doing it that because you like it and because you think others will like you for doing it, you might want to first reevaluate your priorities, because your number one
Exactly.
priority should be developing yourself, your abilities, and your craft
Yes.
before, it's like putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah.
I 1000% agree.
Yeah, you can't be worried about a following if you don't even have the skills to garner said following.
Yep.
So, you have to work on yourself first and take care of yourself first. And honestly, everything else naturally flows in. Even if it's very slowly, it will happen. I mean, none of your favorite artists got their 20, 30, 40,000 followers overnight.
Yeah, exactly.
Some people it some people that you see that have 100K likes took them 5 years to get there.
Yep. Yeah, and it's just yeah, no, I completely get what you mean. And like and that's how, I experience it as well. Like pretty much all the fan art I draw is all from things that like I already love. Like and like you said, like I immensely like admire people who can draw like from, tons of different fandoms, for like the sake of
Mhm.
selling like, fan art merch at cons and everything. Like I wish I could do that, but for me, like I don't know if it's just because of where I am as an artist, but like I I think you can like tell in my art when I wasn't like that passionate about a piece I was making, and I was just making that piece for like the sake of like, well, I want to have this represented at a con in case people want to buy a print of this or whatever. Like
Yeah.
I can definitely tell that when I look at my own art, and like I think that it's actually really good when you don't have a following or as much of a following, because it's like it's way less like scary in a way because you don't have as big of an audience to like watch while you experiment, and maybe you're like, oh my god, I can't believe I did that, that was so embarrassing that like I posted this picture or whatever, like you know it's I think it's so much better like when you have a smaller following, because you might feel a little more free to just experiment your art and post it and just kind of get yourself going with that. Because I realized like as I've gotten like more followers, I feel way more just really meticulous about the things that I post and like what I think I should post, and I get really insecure about it actually. And
Mhm.
it's and I realize like the things that I try really hard in and think that like, oh, people are going to like this a lot because people are into this kind of thing or whatever, but I wasn't really passionate about the piece, it actually really doesn't get as many likes as the pieces where I was like, oh, like I just kind of did this doodle and I really liked this, so I kind of made it into something. And the ones that I actually feel really good about and came from like, something that I was really like passionate about, I guess, in that piece, like are always the ones that get the most attention. Like even when I think like, oh, whatever, it's not that good, like it's not going to get that many likes or whatever, but it actually they always ended up being like my most popular pieces that I've posted. So I
Yeah.
feel like I have to remind myself like, you know what, like nobody's telling me what to post on my art account. I'm like holding myself to this standard that like doesn't exist. Like nobody's
Yeah.
supporting me, no matter what I'm doing. And it's like, and even though like I love everybody that's supporting me and I'm so thankful and grateful for it, I have to think like I'm not just doing art just for these people. Like I'm doing it for me, and I'm really happy that they're supporting me like while I'm doing this art for me, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And I feel like that's something super, super important for anyone looking to have a social media following to
Yeah,
keep in mind. 9 times out of 10, the standard that you're holding yourself to is imaginary.
exactly.
Nobody is telling you you have to post daily. Nobody is telling you that you have to hit 100 likes or your post failed. These are all
Right.
things that you're telling yourself, and then when you don't meet those expectations, you think you failed, when in reality, those expectations are only done by you, you know?
Exactly, and it's usually over, like, the most, like, absurd things that have, like, no, like, base in any, like, real thing, like
Exactly. And also something that I heard recently that really resonated from me with me on the Creative Pep Talk podcast
Mhm.
was that at the end of the day you need to ask yourself, why is it that you want, I don't know, 100,000 followers? Is it
Exactly.
because you think that that audience will actually serve you in bringing your career to the next level? Or is it because you think that number would look nice to have on your profile?
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, 10,000 followers will be worth zero to you if they're 10,000 unengaged, unenthusiastic people.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, if you have 100 followers, heck, if you have 10 followers and those 10 followers are hardcore fans of your work,
Yeah.
you gotta work for those 10 followers because they're the ones who are gonna see you through at the end of the day.
No, exactly, and I completely agree with that, like, on that like, yeah, and on that same vein, it's like, people keep thinking like, "Oh, once I get this many followers, I'll finally feel validated as an artist, and once I get this many, I'll finally feel validated, and once I get this many," because I realized I was in that pattern. Because in the beginning, I really was like this, "Oh, I want to be a popular artist. I want to be cool and whatever," and I kept thinking like, "Oh, once I get to 50 followers, I'll feel good. Once I get to 100, once I get to 500, once I get to
Yeah.
1,000," and like now I'm like almost at like 3,000 and whatever, and I'm like so appreciative and happy for that, and I'm still like so shook, whatever.
Yeah.
But like I realized that like even though I'm really happy, that I have that many people supporting me and whatever, it didn't like validate me. Like I didn't feel anything because of it. Like I felt happy momentarily, like, oh wow, I reached that goal. But I'm like,
Yeah.
it actually didn't really change anything in a way. Like, more people got to see my art and come and support me, but like it doesn't make me like a better person or a cooler person. It's like what really matters is just like you said, like if you had like those 10 followers who are engaged, like connecting with those people who love your work and like support you, and like just kind of, but just being able to me the most important thing is like when I'm at cons and people come up to me and they say like, "Oh, I follow you and like your art makes me so happy and like I'm so like happy to finally meet you because you're so cool and like I love your stuff." And like they say all these nice things to me and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much." Like I had no idea like somebody felt this like, this strongly about my work, but it really makes me
Yeah.
feel happy, and like even if it was just one or two people, like that is what means like so much to me like as an artist. Like even if I made like one or 10 people happy or whatever, like they felt so happy to come and get art from my booth or like see my art or get a sticker or whatever, like, and they like expressed that to me. that is what that's what keeps me going as an artist. It doesn't matter how many people, it's just that those little like pockets of validation here and there where it's like, like even though I'm not doing this for other people, it feels really good that, I feel like I'm making a little bit of a difference somehow in a way. Like,
Mhm.
I'm making somebody happy. So,
Yeah, and aside from that, also, when you serve those few people that genuinely support you know those people that are always commenting on your
right.
stuff and they buy your new products, like, you're serving them emotionally because you're connecting with them in a way that a lot of other people can't, because they like your art and it's
Yeah.
almost like a different level of connection. But at the same time, the people who are actually connecting with you, odds are the people that are actually willing to part with their hard-earned dollars to
Yeah.
support your work. And that's why I get so mad at people that are like, I just need 50,000 followers, blah blah blah. Those 50,000
Yeah.
people are not all gonna buy from you. So instead of
Oh, yeah.
being so concerned about having this huge number, just be concerned about those few people who are very vocal about your stuff, because at the end of the
Exactly.
day, that few, sometimes it's like less than 1% of your audience that is like that. They're going to be the ones that are willing to part with their money to support you. And it's really important to make sure that they feel, heard, and that you're putting your best self out there for them, because at the end of the day, they're going to be not only supporting you emotionally and kind of keeping your spirits up, but they're also going to be the ones that are going to support your career. And it's really important
Exactly.
to stay true to yourself, because that's what they want.
Exactly. And that's what I think is like, even though I don't like the way this phrase sounds, you always catch more flies with honey rather than vinegar. So it's like you can have like these thousands and thousands of followers, but if you're not like, like you're not that you have to like, be like this social person to be an artist, but it's like
Mhm.
if you have all these followers, you get all these likes, but you like ignore like, every comment, or don't like engage with your fans ever, like obviously people will still like your work, if it's really exceptional and you have really built
Yeah.
that following, but it's, I don't know, like I've always felt so much like happier and so much more like into somebody's art when I feel like they're also a really like kind, awesome person who I can like feel that passion in them, and like I don't know, that they're just really, they make me feel good about like supporting them, like they're just,
Yeah.
they say like thank you, or they write that extra note in like my order from their shop, or so like I see the things that I've really loved, in purchasing art from others, and I really try to do that like myself. Like I always, write a note. I try to include like a few freebies and like my online orders, and when people come to me in person, like, you know, like I don't want to like, talk about how humble I am or whatever, but I really do feel like so surprised when people like express that to me, like I love your art so much, like I'm so happy to meet you. I'm just like thank you, like I want to express my gratitude to them so much for like
Mhm.
literally coming out to this event to like say hi to me and support me, like that's so like, I'm like, what, you make me feel cooler than I actually am, like
Yeah.
I'm so like thank you so much for like liking my art that much, and also wanting to support me as an artist, because like we're all starving artists out here, and we're all like I know not like most of these people going to cons aren't like wealthy and like blowing off money and whatever, so it's like the fact that you're choosing to like support me at my booth, like literally it means the world to me. Like every single person that I meet at a con is like, and and like get something from me at a con, it's like I don't feel like that feeling will ever go away. Like I'm never gonna be like, oh yeah, like I'm so popular and I get all these sales, whatever, like I not to like
Yeah.
not to like talk down people who are, they earned it or whatever, but I feel like I'm always gonna kind of feel really I don't know, just really just so thankful,
Yeah, I know how you feel. So it sounds like your favorite part of working cons is kind of the connections you make
Yeah,
with your audience,
definitely.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I love meeting people, and like not just because, like obviously people like hearing compliments about their art all day. Like that's nice, but like I just really love talking to people that like my art, and like having a conversation and making new friends, or just having like that, like that little magical human connection where you both just kind of have like this happy moment of like, just exchange of like good feelings and appreciation and whatever. I just love like meeting people and everything. So
Yeah. And so on the topic of working cons, what are some you'd say challenges at working
oh god.
for cons?
Oh, there's a lot of them. I would say I did not realize like actually how much time it takes to like research cons, and like cons near me, and like cons I want to go to out of state, and like when their deadline for their application, and which a lot of them don't post that. They'll post it for like 3 days and then it's over, and then you're just,
Wow.
and like I've been getting better at it, but there's still cons where I'm like, oh, it's still, a year away. I have time to apply to that. And it's like, nope, sorry, our application's closed 6 months ago. And I'm like,
Oh
cool.
my
And then,
god.
there's cons that are like, check back at this page. We don't have our details yet, but keep checking. And I'm like, I don't know, it's just me, but I don't have like the mental space or time to like consistently think about all these cons I have to check back on their page. I wish they would just tell me. But
Yeah.
like I have to remember that, like, even though there's a lot of great cons out there, there's a lot of cons that might be good, but they're really poorly run. Like the people who run them are
Mhm.
still people, and they might not be that professional or know how to run a con really well. So it's like, there's that, like, in applying and getting in, and like, and then when you're there, hoping that like the staff that coordinates everything is professional and like has everything done correctly. Like sometimes you might get a really bad spot, and sometimes the staff will work with you and try to help you with that and like try to fix like the foot traffic situation. Sometimes they're like, "Oh well, sorry, like you're you're screwed." And
Yeah.
it's like it's like a luck of the draw, because like it's that human element, like you're always kind of like having that hope that these people you're going to be working with to like be able to vend at this event are like also professional and have your best interests in mind, like as a vendor. And it can be really difficult. And just working with that, like I've just worked at so many events that were not professionally run, and I
Yeah.
and it can be really frustrating. And I just think it's really important for people to kind of learn about like the business side, like if they're trying to get into stuff like that, and really like, know what is professional and what isn't, because you can
Mhm.
really get taken advantage of or kind of get like ripped off if you're not careful. Not that these people are actively ripping you off, but it's like
Mhm.
events that like, promise all this and all that, but they don't
Don't
have the foot
deliver.
traffic, and then they want to charge like $400 for a table, and it's
Ugh.
like, you know what I mean? So you
Yeah.
have to really vet these events out and like really research them and like make sure like, oh, is this the con that, everybody hates because, they have bad people employed that have been like, exposed on social media or whatever. And, like I don't want to support that. And so it's like, it just takes so much like research. Like, and it's really
Yeah.
exhausting.
It sounds like it. And so, do you have any tips that would maybe save someone a little bit of frustration or
Oh, God,
a
yeah.
bit of a surprise if they haven't done a con before?
I would first of all, I would join the Facebook group that's like the Artist Alley Network International. It's like an
Ooh.
entire community, and they have so many good like tips, not only on con stuff, but like manufacturers, feedback, like so many things for people who like just want to be like artists in general. Like an artist like me who sells online, does cons, whatever.
Yeah.
And but they also, people will talk about their experience at cons. Like people will say, hey, like who's been to like, so and so con, what was your experience, what was it like? And like people who have been there will be like, yeah, like I went in this year, the foot traffic was this and that, and I got these sales, and like I felt like I would or would not go back. The staff was like this. So like I think that's really important, because like the community is there to help you, and like people are really supportive of each other, and really like we're there for each other, like, as artists in like the vending community. So I think that is a really good step in the right direction. But also just researching cons like ahead of time. And you're not going to get in that many cons like in the
Mhm.
first year. I only got into one con like my first year, and it was really last minute. And I didn't even go to that many cons this year either, due to other circumstances. But it's like, look up like just look up all the cons in your area and find out exactly when they have their application times. Find out, like, obviously the dates of the con, if it's going to work for you, and like how you're going to get there. And just try to make like some kind of document or spreadsheet or note or whatever, if you can, like with all of these details, so it's easy to reference. And what I do is like I set dates in my phone for like application dates that do show up. If not, if they don't show them on their page, I harass their Facebook page for the information. I'm like,
Yeah.
hi, when are your applications open? Hi, when are your applications open? Like a million times until they're like, okay, it's gonna be like in February or March, and I'm like, okay, thank you. I will keep looking around then. Like you have to like really go out and do that, because like I said, not everybody is really doing this with like the thought of user friendliness, if you will, in mind. So it's
Yeah.
like, you really have to be on top of it. And I would say just plan it in advance, because likely if you haven't gone to a con yet, and you haven't really done like an online shop yet, you probably still need time to build up your materials anyways. And I think it's a good idea to open up an online shop and kind of gauge like what sells and what
Interest.
doesn't for
Yeah.
you, before you go to cons. And also go to those cons as a con goer and check out the artist alley and the vendors and see what kind of things are selling. Like see like, oh, I see a lot of these people have acrylic charms, I see a lot of enamel pins, I see a lot of prints, because it really at each con a lot of things like sell differently. Like when I was at
Mhm.
MomoCon, it was like the thing I sold the most was big prints. But when I was at Holiday Matsuri this past weekend, I didn't sell like that many big prints at all, and I sold mostly my stickers and my acrylic charms and enamel pins. So it's like
Interesting.
it does like change with like the times, obviously, like what people want to buy at the time or whatever. But you just want to be able to like just look at what other people are doing and look at like tables that are doing really well and like take notes on what they're doing and just research, like it takes a lot of research and just
Yeah.
tips and trying, like you're not going to be perfect your first time, like I've changed my setup and like my products and all that, like every event I've gone to, like every single time. And like you're just it's just trial and error, really. Like you'll get the hang of it, and people around you at events will give you tips. Like they're really nice and supportive. Like I've had people who helped me in that way and said like, hey, like maybe you should display this like this, or you should sell these like this way, and like this will really help you, or have you thought about doing this kind of product? So it's like, there's a community there. And it's like with making art, you just got to do it a million times and then you'll finally get it right.
Yeah, no, that's super solid advice. I feel like that's super helpful for people who might be interested in doing some, work at cons. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing some of that insight. And I guess to start wrapping things up, do you have any exciting things planned for your work in the future? Like it can be either products or an event or something like that.
Well, I applied to MomoCon again. I'm gonna be applying to Anime Weekend Atlanta. I'm really gonna be applying to as many cons as I can, so hopefully I get
Yeah.
into them. But as far as my art goes, I think I'm gonna be coming out with a lot more enamel pins, because I'm really obsessed with making them now. And
Yeah.
I don't know, like I wish I had more exciting things to say, but
No,
I
that's pretty
think
exciting in itself.
in this year, in 2019, it's really my goal to start branching out into like more acrylic charms, more enamel pins, more like merchy things. I really really want to get into like apparel. Like I really want to make shirts and maybe like tote bags with like cute designs on them.
Yeah.
And I just have to figure out, like with screen printing and all that, it's like I have to figure out what designs will work, and so it's a work in progress. But I don't know. I'm trying to come out with like a ton of new product types in the year coming, and I'm trying to go to
Yeah.
as many events as I can. So
Yeah, that
I'll
sounds
always
super
be
fun.
updating.
Yeah, it'll definitely be fun to see what you'll be up to next year.
Yes, thank you.
And this is a question I love asking
Yeah.
all of my guests at the end. So, especially you love working with color.
Yes,
That is your jam. It's your bread and butter.
it is.
But is there a color palette or even a single color that you don't really use that much in your art, but you
Oh
still
God.
personally love?
Um. Yes, I would have to say it's God. I mean, there's some in different ways, but I don't use the colors orange, green, or yellow a lot.
Mhm.
But I really do love those colors. I don't know if I would love them together, but I like those colors each in their own respective way for different reasons.
Yeah.
Like when I go to museums, like my favorite paintings are like the ones of really abstract, like color block art, which I mean that's kind of like my art, so whatever. But like I also really love any paintings of like flowers or like landscapes or plant life or anything like naturey, which
Mhm.
totally doesn't seem like me, but I really really love. Like so I don't use a lot of green or oranges or yellows, but I really love them and works like that. So
Ooh, and I can really see those colors working well in your art.
yeah,
So
I
it might
gotta
be
I gotta
something to
branch out
try.
more. I gotta do some more experimenting.
Yeah. And I guess to finally put a little bow on this interview, where can people find you if they haven't seen your work?
They can find me on Instagram, on Twitter. I don't use Tumblr anymore, so I mean, I do have one, but I haven't posted on it in months, so don't go there. But I yeah, Instagram is my most active. And I also do Facebook sometimes, but that's pretty much my social media, I would say.
Okay, so for those of you out there who want clickable links, I will be putting those in the show notes for you as well as on the website. But Ella, thank you so much for joining me
Thank
today. It was so
you.
fun talking to you, and
I
it was
agree.
really nice hearing about your insight as to how you were developing your style and being a part-time artist. And I think people are really going to appreciate your story and, all your experiences.
Thank you so much, and thank you for letting me like ramble for the last hour.
Oh, don't worry. Like, honestly, I feel like whenever people think that they're being too rambly, it's when they're sharing like a lot of really
Yeah,
good information. So ramble on.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It makes me feel cool, and I was really happy to be here, and this was really, really fun.
Ever since this interview, Ella and I have been talking, and she's becoming a nice art friend to talk to. And, I just learned so much about myself talking to her. And I just learned so much in this interview. And how about I list out 3 key lessons that you can take away from our talk with Ella today? So, number 1, put yourself first, because you know that if you're not feeling good, then you can't make art. This is something she said in the episode. And what she means is you need to put yourself first and take care of yourself. Find out what you like in your own art, figure out your style, and practice and do all these things that are good for you. Because if you don't take care of yourself, it's going to be really hard for you to take care of your audience and please them, because you can't do anything for other people before yourself. As RuPaul would say, if you ain't gonna love yourself, how the hell are you gonna love somebody else? Or something along those lines. Number 2, and this was a really big point she hit that I was like, duh, why didn't I really think of this? But your medium of choice is very important when it comes to finding your art style, because it can affect how you feel about your art. Sometimes when you think you hate your art style, it could very well be that it's not that you don't like your art style, it's that you're not liking how your art style looks in the medium that you're using. So take the time to explore other mediums. If you're not happy with your art, and even if you are happy with your art, and let's say you're a digital artist, why don't you try watercolors? Or why don't you try markers, pastels, coloring pencils? Try everything you can get your hands on, because you won't know what works for you and what you like and what looks good with your art style until you try it. Because even if you like what you're doing right now, what if there's an even better way to enhance your style just waiting for you to try it out? So, yeah, I really liked that point that she made, because I don't know why it didn't hit me that that's why I didn't like my own art style for so long. And number 3, and this one really hit home, but just because art is not your full-time job doesn't make you any less of an artist. I feel like this hit home for me a lot because I myself am not a full-time artist, and in some ways it has become this cloud over my life that has made me feel down about it, especially in recent years. But I need to remind myself, and you need to remind yourself, that just because you don't dedicate your entire life to art doesn't mean you're any less of an artist. you are as much an artist as anybody else, whether you pick up a pencil once a week or once a day. The fact that you are creating art makes you an artist. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise or make you feel otherwise, okay? Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed your time here with me and Ella today. I know I had an amazing time. But if you want to keep this party going, why don't you subscribe to the podcast and, have my episodes delivered to your favorite podcasting app automatically every time it's released. You can do that on any app you're using to listen to me right now. Just hit subscribe. And if you want to go that little extra mile, why don't you also leave a quick little review? Those really help out. It helps me because it helps the podcast get seen by a lot more people, and that way I can reach more artists with these messages and stories that I'm sharing week after week. Now, if you're interested in following what's going on with the podcast outside of this little bubble we got going on right here, why don't you head on over to Instagram and follow the podcast at The Art Journey Pod. And you can find detailed show notes other than right here in the app. You can find them on the website at theartjourneypodcast.com. And if you care about me at all, I'm just kidding. But if you want to see my art, and you want to check out what I'm doing, you can totally follow me on Instagram at Alex Agosto. That's ALEKSAGOSTO. And I also have a website under the same name, alexagosto.com. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode today. I had a really good time, and I appreciate all of you guys listening week after week. It really means a lot to me, like a lot. This podcast has been filling my life with so much joy and excitement, and I just can't wait to be here talking to you and other artists week after week. But until next time, guys, I will see you in the next episode. Bye.